Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to another episode of Your English Always Better. I'm Monica, and today we're diving into a topic that has affected or will affect practically everyone in the world to some degree. Isn't that right, David?
Monica, you're right. Today's topic is really special. We're ready to dive deep into the concepts, problems, and possible solutions related to self-esteem.
Exactly. Today we're going to talk about how people can improve their self-esteem. It's such an important topic that can make a huge difference in someone's life. I'm eager to share all the information we've prepared with our dear listeners.
I'm excited too, Monica. Before we start, I think it's important to mention that we did extensive research for this episode. We consulted various studies and experts in the field to bring the most up-to-date and reliable information to our audience.
Great point. It's crucial that our listeners know we're basing our information on reliable sources. After all, when we talk about something as delicate as self-esteem, we need to be sure we're offering solid and well-founded guidance.
So, how about we start by explaining exactly what low self-esteem is? I think it's a good starting point for our discussion today. Would you like to start, Monica?
Low self-esteem is essentially a negative evaluation that a person makes of themselves. It's when someone doesn't feel worthy, capable, or valuable. This affects how the person sees themselves and how they believe others see them.
Excellent explanation, and it's important to understand that low self-esteem doesn't come from nowhere, right? Generally, it develops over time, often starting in childhood and being reinforced by experiences throughout life.
Exactly, low self-esteem often has roots in childhood. It can be the result of constant criticism, lack of affection, unfair comparisons with siblings or peers, or even more serious trauma such as abuse or neglect.
And unfortunately, once established, low self-esteem can be reinforced by various situations in adult life. It's as if the person develops a negative lens through which they see themselves and their experiences.
And speaking of situations that reinforce low self-esteem, there are certain triggers that can worsen this problem. Could you mention some of these triggers for our listeners?
Sure. A common trigger is failure or the perception of failure in important areas of life, such as work or relationships. Even small setbacks can be interpreted as major failures by someone with low self-esteem.
Another significant trigger is negative comparisons with other people, especially on social media. Dr. Maria Silva, in her study on self-esteem in the digital age, highlights how social media can amplify feelings of inadequacy.
That's very relevant nowadays, Monica. Social media creates a kind of showcase where people tend to show only the best of their lives, which can make others feel inferior or inadequate.
And we can't forget about bullying or social rejection, which can have lasting effects on a person's self-esteem. Negative experiences of rejection or humiliation can leave deep emotional scars.
Without a doubt, another important trigger is physical changes, such as aging, weight gain, or health problems. Our society places a lot of emphasis on physical appearance, which can significantly affect someone's self-image.
Great point. Now that we've talked about what low self-esteem is and some of its triggers, how about we discuss how to recognize the signs of low self-esteem? This can help our listeners identify the problem in themselves or in people close to them.
A common sign of low self-esteem is the tendency to excessively self-criticize, even for small mistakes. The person can be extremely hard on themselves, amplifying minor flaws and ignoring their strengths.
Another typical behavior is difficulty in accepting compliments or recognizing one's own achievements. People with low self-esteem often devalue their successes, attributing them to luck or minimizing their importance.
Great observation. It's also common for people with low self-esteem to avoid challenges for fear of failing or disappointing others. They may feel paralyzed by anxiety and fear of judgment, missing opportunities for growth.
And we can't forget about the constant search for external approval. People with low self-esteem often depend excessively on the opinion of others to feel validated, which can be emotionally draining.
Dr. Johan Santos, in his book Self-Esteem and Well-Being, highlights how these behaviors can become a vicious cycle, further reinforcing low self-esteem over time.
That's very important, David. Speaking of vicious cycles, it's crucial to mention how low self-esteem can harm different aspects of a person's life. Could you give some examples for our listeners?
Of course, at work, for example, low self-esteem can lead a person to not seek promotions or new challenges. They may feel incapable or undeserving of better opportunities, limiting their professional growth.
In relationships, low self-esteem can result in difficulties in establishing healthy boundaries or expressing needs. The person may accept poor treatment because they don't think they deserve better.
And in mental health, low self-esteem can contribute to the development of anxiety and depression. It's as if the person is constantly at war with themselves, which is emotionally exhausting.
Not to mention the impact on social life, David. People with low self-esteem may isolate themselves for fear of judgments, losing opportunities for connection and social support that are so important for emotional well-being.
It really is a problem that affects multiple areas of life. But the good news is that there are ways to overcome low self-esteem. How about we share some strategies with our listeners?
Great idea! A fundamental strategy is to practice self-knowledge and self-acceptance. This involves learning to recognize your strengths and weaknesses and accepting yourself as an imperfect but valuable human being.
Excellent point. This can be done through therapy, meditation, or mindfulness practices. Many psychologists we consulted recommend daily practice of positive self-reflection.
That's very valuable. Another important strategy is to set realistic goals and celebrate small victories. This helps build a sense of accomplishment and confidence, showing the person that they are capable of achieving their goals.
It's also crucial to learn to question negative thoughts and replace them with more positive and realistic affirmations. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but rather approaching them in a more constructive and compassionate way.
And we can't forget the importance of taking care of physical health, including regular exercise and a balanced diet. Physical well-being has a direct impact on how we feel emotionally.
Exercise, in particular, releases endorphins that improve mood and self-image. Additionally, achieving physical goals can increase confidence in other areas of life.
Another important aspect is cultivating healthy relationships and moving away from toxic people. Social support is fundamental to strengthening self-esteem, while negative relationships can undermine it.
I completely agree. And speaking of support, seeking professional help can be a crucial step for those struggling with low self-esteem. A therapist can offer personalized tools and strategies to deal with this challenge.
This approach can be effective in treating low self-esteem, helping people change negative thought patterns.
Another strategy worth mentioning is practicing gratitude daily. Focusing on the positive things in life, no matter how small, can help change perspective and improve self-esteem.
And we can't forget to learn to say no and establish healthy boundaries. This helps the person feel more in control of their life and decisions, which is crucial for healthy self-esteem.
Another valuable tip is to develop new skills or hobbies. This can increase confidence and a sense of accomplishment, showing the person that they are capable of learning and growing.
And remember, dear listeners, that improving self-esteem is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's okay to have ups and downs along the way.
It's important to be patient with yourself and persist, even when it seems difficult. Every small step in the right direction is a victory and should be celebrated.
Well said, David. And don't forget, we all have intrinsic value, regardless of our achievements or appearance. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves of this constantly.
I hope this information and tips are useful for our listeners. Remember, if you're struggling with low self-esteem, don't hesitate to seek help. There are many resources available.
Exactly, David. And if you know someone who might be going through this, offer your support and understanding. Sometimes, a gesture of kindness can make all the difference in someone's life.
Well, I believe we've managed to pass on valuable content to our listeners, who, in addition to learning English, have also gained knowledge about self-esteem.
But before we wrap up, how about we review some important words we discussed today? I think this can be very useful for our listeners who are learning English.
Great idea, Monica. Let's go. The first word I'd like to highlight is self-esteem. Self-esteem is the value a person attributes to themselves. For example, having good self-esteem is fundamental for emotional well-being and personal success.
Excellent choice, David. The second word I'd like to review is trigger. A trigger, in this context, is something that sets off or worsens an emotional problem. For example, social media can be a trigger for feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem.
And for our third word, how about therapy? Therapy is a process that can have various meanings, but in general, it can be defined as a treatment for emotional, behavioral, or psychological issues. For example, therapy can be a valuable tool to help someone overcome low self-esteem and develop a more positive view of themselves.
Excellent choices and examples, David. I hope our listeners found these definitions useful, both for better understanding today's topic and for enriching their English vocabulary.
Well, if you liked the topic, feel free to like the video and leave your comments below.
And now suggestions for other podcasts will appear here on the screen for you to learn English with topics relevant to your life. Thank you for joining us.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay well and don't forget, each of you is unique and special in your own way. Cultivate that self-love and take care of your self-esteem.